A single tagged photo on social media was all it took to destroy 13 years of marriage. Not a confession, not a confrontation. Just one photo, posted by a stranger, that showed me a life my husband had been living without me for longer than I ever imagined. If you think you've heard every version of this story before, trust me, you haven't heard this one. My name is Hannah Reed. I'm 36 years old, and I've been married to my husband, Craig, for 13 years. We live in a quiet suburb outside Charlotte with our 2 kids, Lily and Ben. Craig works as a regional sales representative, which meant he traveled almost every other week, something I had accepted as just part of our normal life together. That evening started like any other. The kids were already asleep, and I was scrolling through social media on the couch, half paying attention to a show playing in the background. I had recently made a new account, mostly to keep up with old college friends, and the algorithm kept suggesting people I might know based on mutual connections. One suggestion caught my eye. A woman named Denise, someone I had never met, with a profile picture that looked strangely familiar. I clicked on it out of simple curiosity, expecting nothing more than a random mutual friend from Craig's old job. Instead, I found photos. Dozens of them. Denise and Craig at a lake house I had never seen before. Denise and Craig at what looked like a birthday party, surrounded by children I did not recognize, and then, buried a few scrolls further down, a photo that made my entire body go cold. Craig standing beside Denise, both of them holding a baby wrapped in a soft blue blanket, the caption reading, "So proud of our little family. 3 years old today, can't believe how fast time flies." 3 years old. I sat there staring at that photo, doing the math in my head, over and over, my hands trembling around my phone. Craig had a second family, a woman, a child, an entire life that existed somewhere completely separate from the one he shared with me and our kids, hidden behind business trips and late meetings I had never once questioned. I did not scream. I did not cry, not yet. I simply sat there in complete silence, scrolling through years of photos documenting a life I never knew existed, and by the time I finally set my phone down, I already knew exactly what I needed to do next. I did not sleep that night. I sat on our couch until nearly 4 in the morning, scrolling through Denise's entire profile, piecing together a timeline that made my stomach turn more with every photo I found. The earliest picture of Craig on her page was from almost 4 years ago, a simple photo at what looked like a work conference in Nashville, the 2 of them standing casually beside a hotel sign. At the time, Craig had told me that same trip was a regional sales meeting he had complained about for weeks, calling it boring and exhausting. I found photos from what appeared to be a small wedding ceremony, intimate, maybe 30 guests, held at a vineyard just outside Nashville almost 3 years ago. Craig wore a gray suit I did not recognize. Denise wore a simple white dress, smiling beside him like the happiest woman alive. I zoomed in on that photo for almost 10 minutes straight, my mind refusing to fully accept what I was looking at. Craig had married this woman. Legally or not, I did not know yet, but the ceremony looked real enough, complete with rings, vows, and a small reception afterward filled with photos of laughing guests I had never met in my life. By morning, I had screenshotted everything. Every photo, every caption, every comment from friends and family members congratulating them on their growing family. I saved it all into a private folder, organized carefully by date, building a timeline stretching back nearly 4 years. I did not wake Craig up when he stumbled downstairs later that morning, tired from a trip he claimed had ended late the night before. I made coffee. I got the kids ready for school. I smiled and asked about his flight, the same way I had 1,000 mornings before that one. Inside, I felt like an entirely different person was operating my body. That afternoon, once the kids were at school, I called a lawyer, explaining everything as calmly as I could manage over the phone, though my voice cracked more than once. She advised me to gather as much documentation as possible before confronting Craig directly, warning me that a case involving potential bigamy, alongside a possible second family, could get complicated quickly, especially with children involved on both sides. I spent the next several days quietly building my case, hiring a private investigator to confirm what I already suspected, someone experienced enough to track down Denise's actual legal address and confirm whether Craig had genuinely married her, or simply let their friends and family believe he had. What I discovered next was something I never could have prepared myself for. The investigator called me exactly 6 days later, his voice careful and measured, the way someone speaks when they know the news they're about to deliver is going to change someone's entire life. Craig had never actually filed a legal marriage license with Denise. The ceremony was real, the rings were real, the vows exchanged in front of 30 guests were real, but legally, on paper, it meant nothing, which meant technically he had not committed bigamy in the eyes of the law, just an elaborate, years-long lie that had convinced an entire community of friends and family that he was a legally married man with a second wife and child. In some strange way, that discovery made everything feel even worse. He had built an entire fake wedding, an entire fake marriage purely for appearances, while legally, our actual marriage remained the only one that counted. The investigator also confirmed something else. Denise had absolutely no idea I existed. As far as she knew, Craig was a single man who traveled frequently for work, someone who had fallen in love with her at that conference in Nashville, someone who had built an entire life with her over the past 4 years, complete with a home, a child, and a wedding that looked identical to any real marriage from the outside. She was, in her own way, just as much a victim in this as I was. That realization shifted something in me. My anger toward Craig grew even sharper, but the cold, calculated plan I had originally imagined, one focused purely on humiliating him, slowly transformed into something bigger. Something that involved making sure Denise finally learned the truth too, the same truth that had been stolen from both of us for years. I spent the next week finalizing everything with my lawyer. Divorce paperwork, documentation proving the timeline of Craig's double life, and a plan to reach out to Denise directly, carefully, respectfully, once everything was legally in motion. I did not want revenge built on cruelty. I wanted the truth to finally exist in the open for everyone involved, including 2 children on opposite sides of the country who deserved to eventually understand why their father had spent years living 2 completely separate lives. 2 weeks after finding that first photo, I sat Craig down at our kitchen table. The same folder Denise's photos had come from now printed and organized neatly in front of me. "We need to talk about Nashville," I said quietly, watching every trace of color drain from his face almost instantly. Craig sat frozen at the kitchen table, staring at the folder in front of him like it might disappear if he looked away long enough. "Hannah, I can explain," he finally said, his voice shaking. "Then explain," I said calmly, sliding the folder closer to him. "Explain the wedding. Explain the house in Nashville. Explain the 3-year-old daughter you never once mentioned in 13 years of marriage." He did not have an explanation that made any of it sound less devastating. He talked about stress, about feeling trapped, about falling into something he never meant to build into an entire second life. Every excuse sounded smaller and more pathetic than the last, especially sitting across from someone who had already seen years of photographic proof of exactly how deliberate his choices had been. "Does she know about us?" I asked. "About me? About Lily and Ben?" Craig shook his head slowly, unable to meet my eyes. That confirmed everything the investigator had already told me. Denise had built her entire life around a man she believed loved only her, completely unaware that he had another wife, 2 more children, and an entire separate existence just a few states away. I filed for divorce that same week. Given the clear pattern of deception, the discovered second household, and documented evidence stretching back nearly 4 years, the process moved forward with very little resistance from Craig's side. He knew exactly how little ground he had left to stand on. A month later, I made the difficult decision to reach out to Denise directly, gently, through a carefully worded letter rather than any kind of dramatic confrontation. I explained everything as clearly and calmly as I could, attaching documentation that proved our actual marriage had existed the entire time Craig had been building a life with her. Her response, when it finally came, broke my heart in an entirely different way. She had genuinely believed every single word he told her. She was, just like me, a mother who had trusted the wrong man completely. In the months that followed, Craig lost far more than just one relationship. He lost the trust of 2 families, 2 sets of friends, and the respect of nearly everyone who had once believed the version of himself he had so carefully built for years. As for me, rebuilding felt slow at first, but eventually, something steadier settled in. I focused on Lily and Ben, on rebuilding a version of stability they could actually rely on, and slowly, month by month, I started recognizing pieces of myself again that had quietly disappeared during those 13 years. If this story hit close to home, if you have ever discovered a truth that completely rewrote everything you thought you knew about someone you trusted, share your story in the comments below. Someone else watching this right now might really need to hear it today. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next story.